Hi folks, this is video number 158, and the title is What I Was Thinking at the Time. This may be a little series, so this is going to, subtitle here is going to be the first episode. The title of the first episode is The Draft. My friend Rick gave me some input about video 157. He observed that I gave some input about my observations and thoughts about the way of the country and my possible projection as to what may very well happen. He asked that I write about my personal thoughts and observations about the jobs and obligations I have discussed in earlier videos, over and above just the experiences I covered. So this is an attempt to do that. I had not really thought about adding in background on how I got into those positions in the first place. It was April 8th, 1969, and I was at the Wilkes-Barre Induction Center located next to the Sterling Hotel. The time, 7 a.m. My age, 19. I had received a letter from the draft board instructing me to report at that time and location a few days prior. I was in top physical condition. 5'10", 186 pounds, 25-inch thighs, 16.5-inch upper and forearms. My waist was 30 inches and chest was 50 inches. I could actually do the human flag trick with hands on a pole and hold my body out horizontally like a flag. That may sound far-fetched, but it's true. Those years putting in 52,120-pound bales of hay, milking 60 head of cattle, bouncing on heavy equipment at the school, peat bog, and slinging 1.5 miles of pipe on the gas line crew daily kept me in shape. Deciding at 15, while sitting on the stone wall, contemplating what kind of man I wanted to become, I came to the conclusion that there was no way I could go to college. In light of that reality, I made the personal commitment to always learn as much as possible about every occupation I encountered. That would be my education. I figured I might get drafted, but until that time came, I stuck to my plan. The quarry road to the top of the hill was done. The stone on top of the hill was exposed. I figured there had to be good stone because there was a working quarry on each side of me. Outcroppings were and still are all over the property. Target practice now is rather precarious. I had just traded my 62 Falcon in on a 66 Impala 2-door hardtop. It was tan with a 283 engine and black interior. Had 18,000 miles on it and cost me $1,800. Today that would be about $18,000, I think. In video 35, my first camping trip, I talk about my neighbor and impromptu older brother, Byron. I was 6 and he was 10. His 2 sisters and younger brother, my sister Deb, and I were the only kids around. We were close during our formative years. Mark is the only one left now. He and his wife Nancy live a few hundred yards south of me, next to the lake. When Byron graduated from Benton Township High School in 63 or 64, haven't really done the math. Anyway, he went into the Marine Corps. After basic at the Great Lakes and advanced training at Camp Lejeune, he went to Vietnam with an amphibious assault battalion. This was the U.S. early involvement in Vietnam. Byron was there 13 months. When he got back home, we had some serious private conversations. He told me that it was a political war. I would probably be going sooner or later and should get prepared. So I did. I created an obstacle course through the trees with 1/2-inch wire cable, and I used my A-frame cabin for a scalable wall as start and finish point. I was now in 10th grade when he returned. We had a term paper to write and about 3 months to complete it. The teacher was going to pick everyone's topic. I made a special request to write about guerrilla warfare. My request was granted. Byron gave me a copy of the Marine Corps Jungle Survival Manual. Gaining all that information and having numerous discussions with Byron, I wrote a pretty decent paper. I also learned what I may soon be facing. Thoughts of these learnings were in my head as I stood in line, moving station to station with 40 other guys, dressed only in jockey shorts. All my friends who were drafted all got about 4 months or so before they got a notice to report. Once again, I decided to just continue with my life goals at the time. I had an appointment in the shopping area to look at a TD6 International Track bucket loader. I kept that appointment on the 10th. The loader was in great shape. It had a totally refurbished undercarriage. It ran fine and the cutting edges were fairly new. I don't recall the price, but it was a good buy. The farmer who owned it told me he couldn't handle maintenance costs for a machine like that. I'm sure I was going to buy it for just the cost of the undercarriage repair he needed to get out from under. I told the farmer I wanted to buy it, but I would have to do a little financial finagling. He was fine with that, and he would hold it for me. I guess I should mention that I had met a really nice girl back in February. We really hit it off and were dating a lot. She was a first-grade teacher in Tunkhannock. She taught in a little red schoolhouse that was located where the big Tunkhannock High School sign stands today. The following year, she moved to a brick building that is now the Tunkhannock Historical Society building. I can't remember if she taught any in the new school on Digger Drive. Well, we didn't get 4 months like our friends. On the 14th of April, I was home alone for some reason. I saw the mailman stop at the box and then drive on. I thought to myself, I may as well go out and get my draft notice. There was only one item in the mailbox. It was addressed to me, and the return address said Selective Service Board. I walked over and sat on the front porch. Upon opening the letter, it said, "Greetings from President Richard M. Nixon. You have been selected." Reading on, it said I was to report on the 22nd. 8 days to rearrange my life. My dad took over the payments for the Impala. Military pay was only $115 a month. Of course, I had to call off purchasing the bucket loader, too. What a bummer. Louise and I still dated and made plans to get together when I got time off. I reasoned that since I had construction experience of sorts, and I knew the Marines as well as the Army were drafting, I would be smart to enlist for training I could actually use when I got out. There wasn't much call for an infantryman or mortar operator in civilian life. I called a Navy recruiter about enlisting in the Seabees. I talked to the Navy guy. It seems that all the recruiters knew who was on the draft list. He told me I could get into the Seabees, but I would have to enlist for 6 years. 6 years at 19 is a relatively long time. Longer than I wanted to commit to. So I went down the hall to the Army guy. I took a few tests and it showed I was qualified for heavy equipment operation and maintenance. Imagine that. I enlisted for 3 years. At least I'd be getting training in something useful. Little did I know how useful. Basic would be at Fort Dix, New Jersey. My report date as an enlistee was April 28th. Mom and Dad dropped me off that morning at the Wilkes-Barre Induction Center. A little note here about the draft board. Including the year I was drafted, names were actually selected by a board of people, mostly local politicians, namely the Democrat and Republican committee man or woman, and other local politicians. Guess what? None of their 7 sons were ever drafted. Imagine that. There was also a only son clause. I guess I didn't qualify for some reason. The lottery version was instituted the following year, and my birthday came up number 364. I would not have been drafted that year. Basic training was a piece of cake, except for one thing. My company was made up of guys shorter than me, or a lot taller than me. That was troublesome during the 150-yard man carry. I always got a guy about 6'2" or taller, and who outweighed me by at least 50 pounds. We carried each other in the fireman-type method over the shoulder. The tall guys had to watch I didn't kick them in the face with my heels. We were never transported by truck. We ran everywhere. The shortest runs were 15 miles to medical training or bayonet training. All other training sites were 25 miles. We double-timed in sand all the time, carrying everything we owned. At qualifications, my company set 9 new records out of 12 of the tests. I graduated July 3rd and had 2 weeks off before reporting to Fort Belvoir for operation and maintenance training. The training was to last a couple months. I graduated in the top 10 of my class and became a PFC. Being in the top 10, I was offered an opportunity for additional training. The first class was diagnostics. The upper level class was total tear down and rebuild. I graduated number 2 in that class. I was qualified to tear down and rebuild anything from chainsaws to 20-ton drag lines. We had a written exam and a practical exam. The written was pretty easy. The practical was more challenging. An instructor put 3 name strips for 7 pieces of equipment in a hat, and we each drew a strip from his hat. That way, no one knew who they would be working with until the last minute. There were 7 3-man teams. We got the 20-ton drag line. The test lasted a week. We did a complete tear-down, inspection, repair or replace any problems or components, and put it back together. We passed if the equipment started, ideally on the first try. If not, you prayed it started on the second. Otherwise, you got sent to cook school or something. At least that's what we were told. Our drag line started on the first try. I made Specialist 4. To tie things together, I should make a reference to video 126, Special Events Part 1. That is my story of meeting my guardian angel face to face so he could tell me how to survive in Vietnam. That occurred about 2 weeks before graduation and a month before reporting back to Fort Dix and McGuire Air Base for transportation to Vietnam. I think I've covered enough background about what it was like to get drafted and the aftermath. Well, I guess that concludes video number 158. Now you know what I was thinking about standing around in my jockey shorts at the induction center. All the best, folks. Jake, quit huffing and puffing. All the best.